Serena felt the weight of his gaze long before she dared to look his way. The ambient clink of wine glasses and mellow Italian music filled the upscale restaurant, but a different kind of tension coiled in the air tonight. At table 14, a man sat with an aura so commanding that other patrons instinctively whispered and stole glances. He was there. Dante Moretti, the most feared Mafia boss in the city, and he was used to people bending over backward to please him. Yet Serena, a junior waitress on the floor, did something no one ever dared. She ignored him outright. With steady breaths to calm her racing heart, Serena glided past Dante's table, tray balanced gracefully on her palm, offering warm smiles to every guest except the brooding, tattooed man in the corner. Her uniform's crisp white apron swished around her knees as she deliberately busied herself at far-off tables. Filling water here, clearing plates there, anywhere but at Dante's table. Dante's dark eyes narrowed from beneath neatly trimmed raven hair. He drummed his fingers, marked with intricate black ink tattoos curling under the cuffs of his tailored suit, against his untouched wine glass. He watched Serena intently, a predator studying prey, perplexed and irked by the audacity of being overlooked. A low murmur rose among Dante's entourage. One of his bodyguards leaned forward as Serena passed them by a third time without so much as a glance. The guard's posture tensed, awaiting his boss's reaction. No one ignored Dante Moretti. Not restaurant owners who owed him protection money, not rival gangsters, and certainly not a waitress barely in her 20s. Serena could feel the burn of Dante's scrutiny on her back. Her pulse thudded in her ears, but she kept her expression serene, living up to her name, as if oblivious to the storm brewing at table 14. She was aware, of course. How could she not be? The entire staff knew who Dante was, what he was capable of. She'd overheard the urgent whisper from the restaurant manager when Dante and his men arrived. Make sure Mr. Moretti has everything he needs, immediately. But Serena had made a decision tonight. She would not cater to a man like him beyond the bare minimum. It was a quiet act of defiance, perhaps foolish, perhaps brave, fueled by a mixture of fear, anger, and principle burning in her chest. As Serena set down a bottle of sparkling water at another table, her colleague Mira hissed under her breath. "What are you doing? That's Dante Moretti over there. He's waiting for service." "I know exactly who he is," Serena whispered back without looking up, adjusting her tray. Her voice was calm, but her hands weren't entirely steady. Only Mira, close enough to notice, saw the slight tremble as Serena reached for an empty bread basket. Mira's eyes widened in alarm. "Then why aren't you—" "Someone else can serve him," Serena cut her friend off quietly. She forced a tight smile as a customer from table 10 thanked her for the water. Once the customer turned away, Serena added in a lower tone, "I'm not going over there, Mira." Before Mira could protest further, a deep, rich voice cut through the gentle clatter of the dining room. "Excuse me," Dante Moretti called out, his baritone polite, but laced with an unmistakable edge of authority. He raised a hand slightly, summoning her. Conversations at nearby tables hushed. Even the musicians in the corner missed a few beats as the lead violinist's bow quivered off-key. Serena's stomach flipped. This was the moment she had been simultaneously dreading and stubbornly provoking. Every rational part of Serena's mind screamed at her to hurry over, paste on a smile, apologize for any delay, and give the man whatever he wanted. That's what a smart person would do. That's what someone who valued their job, perhaps even their safety, would do. Instead, Serena inhaled slowly, pretending not to have heard him. Her heart hammered against her ribcage. She turned deliberately to pick up a pitcher of water from the waiter's station, as if refilling it were the most important task in the world. Her defiance hung in the air, bold and naked. A few gasps came from a table where diners watched with bated breath. Mira looked as though she might faint, her face gone pale. Dante's eyes flashed with open surprise at Serena's continued slight. He lowered his summoning hand, jaw tightening into an intrigued smirk. The air around him seemed to electrify. He leaned back in his leather-upholstered chair, never taking his gaze off Serena. The faintest hint of a dark smile played on his lips, equal parts amusement and irritation. One of his men, a burly fellow in a black suit, shifted as if to rise and compel the waitress over by force. But Dante lifted 2 fingers subtly, a silent command to wait. Serena busied herself wiping an already spotless section of the counter, as though completely unaware of him. But inside she was an earthquake of nerves. She dared not glance over, but she could feel him, intensity rolling off that corner like a thundercloud. She swallowed against a dry throat, running through the worst-case scenarios in her mind. What's he going to do? Throw a fit? Hurt me? Get me fired? This job was Serena's lifeline, but she also had her limits. She'd heard enough about Dante Moretti, rumored to run half the city's underworld, the man behind the curtain pulling strings with blood-stained hands. Serving him felt like consorting with the devil. And Serena had already lost too much to people who lived on the wrong side of the law. She thought of her kid brother at home, of the empty chair at her law school lectures, where she used to sit before her parents' accident ripped normal life away. A man like Dante and his ilk were the reason she felt so much fear walking home at night, why innocent people got hurt. If this silent protest tonight was a small stand for her principles, so be it. But Dante Moretti was not a man accustomed to patience or denial. After a few more charged seconds of watching Serena pretend he didn't exist, Dante exchanged a glance with his right-hand man, Nico, a tall, hawk-eyed figure lingering at the edge of the booth. Dante gave a slight nod. Nico understood instantly. The man pushed back his chair and stood, smoothing down his jacket. Serena's focus remained on the counter, but she sensed movement approaching. Footsteps with purpose. Her fingers tightened around the handle of the water pitcher as Nico's broad shadow fell over her. "Mr. Moretti would like a word," Nico said in a low, courteous tone that did nothing to mask the steel beneath. It wasn't a mere request. A jolt went through Serena. She looked up into Nico's face. He had the cold, professional look of someone who'd seen years of violence without flinching. Her mouth went dry. I'm busy attending other guests," Serena managed, aware of how weak that excuse sounded even to her own ears. She hated that her voice wavered just a touch. Nico didn't budge. "Now," he said. And though his lips formed a polite smile, the word was edged with quiet menace. Mira was tugging at Serena's elbow with silent pleading, her eyes saying, "Just go." "Are you crazy?" Around them, diners stared openly, sensing a spectacle. Serena realized her stand had only two possible outcomes now: back down or double down. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt, but a stubborn part of her refused to submit completely. She set down the water pitcher with deliberate calm and drew herself up to her full height, still a head shorter than Nico. "Lead the way," she said, hoping the tremor in her knees didn't show. Nico turned and walked back toward the corner booth. Heads turned and whispers trailed in their wake as Serena followed, her stomach doing flips. She felt Mira's frightened gaze on her back and squared her shoulders a little more. Each step felt surreal, as if the floor might open up. The soft glow of chandelier light glinted off Dante's rings as he steepled his fingers, watching her approach with an unreadable expression. When Serena finally stood at the edge of his table, she noticed details she'd avoided seeing before. The intricate patterns of ink peeking out from under his cuffs and collar. A snake, a rose, hints of letters, curling over strong wrists and a hint of muscular neck. The tailored suit in midnight blue that fit broad shoulders perfectly, and those eyes, dark, dissecting, disturbingly beautiful, fixed on her like she was the most fascinating thing in the room. Dante motioned with 2 fingers toward the empty spot in the semicircular booth beside him. "Sit," he said softly. A simple word, but laced with a quiet command that made clear it was not optional. Serena's heart skipped. Sit next to him? It was highly irregular for a staff member to join a guest, let alone this guest. Her instincts screamed to keep distance. "I'd prefer to stand, if you don't mind," she replied, careful to keep her tone respectful. She clasped her hands behind her back so he wouldn't see them shake. For a moment, Dante merely regarded her. The corner of his mouth twitched, perhaps in displeasure at her not immediately obeying. One of his men, seated across, shifted as if offended on his boss's behalf. Then Dante slid aside on the leather seat, making a bit more room, and patted the spot again. His smile was calm, but his eyes held Serena captive. "I insist." His voice was quiet, polite, and utterly unyielding. A pulse of anger flared through Serena's fear. The nerve of this man, ordering her around in her own workplace. Still, confronted so directly, with several of Dante's suited henchmen watching, Serena knew she was cornered. Causing a larger scene would only make this worse. Slowly, she lowered herself to sit in the booth, careful to leave a few precious inches between her and Dante. Her spine was stiff, ready to bolt. The leather was warm from his body heat. Dante watched her, clearly noting the rigid posture and the way her eyes refused to meet his. He found it almost amusing. This young woman who wouldn't even look at him now, after refusing him so openly moments ago. He leaned a fraction closer. Not enough to touch, but Serena felt the slight invasion of her space and went even tauter. A faint whiff of his cologne drifted to her, smoky cedar and something subtly spiced. Under different circumstances, it might have been intoxicating. Right now, it only set her nerves more on edge. "What is your name?" Dante asked, tone conversational, as if this were a normal chat at a bar, rather than an interrogation in a spotlight. "Serena," she answered, eyes fixed forward on the polished wood of the table. She could see her own reflection faintly in it, wide-eyed and tense. "Serena," Dante repeated slowly, tasting the syllables. "Serena?" She pressed her lips together. He wanted her last name. Giving it felt like yielding more information than she wanted to this man. "Just Serena. I'm a waitress here. That's all you need to know, sir." A ghost of a smile crossed Dante's face at her poised response. Across from them, one of Dante's lieutenants let out an incredulous breath, as if scandalized. "You know who I am, don't you, Serena?" Dante's voice deepened on her name. Serena finally turned her head just enough to properly meet those dark eyes. They pulled her in with a gravity that was almost physical. She suppressed a shiver and answered truthfully, "Yes, I do." His eyebrow lifted. Clearly, her candidness caught him off guard for an instant. He recovered fast, offering a tight smile. "Then you understand that when I call, you answer." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of how his world worked, delivered with velvety menace. A spark of defiance ignited in Serena at his presumption. "With all due respect, I was occupied with another table," she replied, voice quieter now, but steady. "I intended no offense." A lie. She absolutely intended to snub him. But she doubted telling Dante Moretti that to his face would end well. Dante considered her, silence stretching. Serena could feel her pulse in her throat. He had a way of looking, unblinking, that made the truth feel exposed. She wondered if he could sense her deception. "Occupied, he murmured. One strong arm draped over the back of the booth behind Serena, casually caging her without even touching her. This restaurant prides itself on attentiveness. "I'd hate to imagine the staff is too busy to tend to a guest." Serena swallowed. She could almost feel the heat of his arm near her shoulders. A reminder of how physically overpowering he could be if he chose. Yet she lifted her chin slightly. We're a bit short-handed tonight," she managed, trying to sound apologetic but not submissive. "My colleague was going to attend you shortly." Dante's dark lashes lowered, and he huffed a quiet breath that might have been a chuckle. "Ah, so it wasn't going to be you then?" Her carefully constructed composure threatened to crack. His perception was razor-sharp. She decided honesty, or a version of it, was her best path now. "I thought, perhaps you'd prefer our head waiter's service. He's more experienced with VIP guests." That was partly true. The head waiter usually took over with demanding clients or celebrities. Dante turned his head slightly, eyes flicking over the dining room where indeed the gray-haired head waiter was hovering anxiously by the bar, clearly debating whether to intervene. No doubt he feared Dante's displeasure. "Interesting," Dante said softly. "You see, I rather prefer your service, Serena." The way he said her name was almost intimate. Her heart did a strange little flutter of confusion at that tone. "That's why I requested you in the first place." Serena's brow knitted. "Requested me?" Dante's gaze held hers captive. "Do you think it was coincidence you were assigned this section tonight?" he asked quietly. She blinked, taken aback. Truthfully, she normally worked the other side of the restaurant. Smaller tables, the newer staff section. Tonight she'd been surprised when the manager put her on the large corner booth at all. She assumed it was due to staff shortage. Seeing the dawning realization in her eyes, Dante gave a slow nod. "I requested the owner that you personally attend my table this evening." Serena's blood ran cold and hot all at once. A flush crept up her neck. Why would you do that? You didn't even know me." They had never officially met, though Serena had glimpsed him here once or twice before from afar. Why on earth had he asked for her? Dante didn't answer immediately. His eyes traced over her face, searching. Under that scrutiny, Serena felt strangely bare. Finally he spoke, voice low, almost thoughtful. "Let's say I like to be aware of interesting people in my city. A multilingual law student working nights to support her family. That's interesting to me." Her heart skipped a beat. "How did he—" He gently tapped a finger on the table, noting her shock. "Yes, Serena. I know a bit about you." Dante's tone was calm, but there was an undercurrent of satisfaction at catching her off guard. Serena felt a chill. This was worse than she thought. "Did you run a background check on me?" She hated how small her voice sounded. The idea that this criminal had dug into her personal life without her knowing made her skin crawl. "Such big eyes," Dante said softly, ignoring her question. like a little rabbit that wandered into the wolf's den. He tilted his head. Only you jumped into the den on purpose, didn't you? By provoking me. Serena's breath caught. Was that what she'd done? Yes, and now she felt like a fool. The den of wolves was exactly where she was sitting. Around the booth, his men watched her like circling predators. Her eyes darted toward the open restaurant. Most patrons had gone back to their meals, the immediate drama seemingly diffused now that she was at Dante's table. But she caught Mira still watching worriedly, and the manager's head peeking from the kitchen door. No one would come to her rescue if things went bad. They wouldn't dare. Dante's fingers lightly thrummed the back of the seat behind her, drawing her attention back. You haven't answered my question, Serena, he said. She realized he had indeed asked something while she'd been surveying the room. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? She asked quietly. His eyes hardened just a touch at having to repeat himself, but he obliged. I asked why you decided not to answer when I called for you. Each word was measured. Serena's throat tightened. A truthful answer could be disastrous, because I think you're a terrible person and I don't respect you. That would likely go over poorly. She opted for a careful half-truth instead. It wasn't personal, she lied, keeping her voice as steady as possible. I was overwhelmed with my duties and... Before she could finish, Dante moved. His hand left the back of the booth and gently yet swiftly gripped her chin between thumb and forefinger, turning her face fully toward him. It wasn't painful, but the sudden contact sent Serena's senses reeling. Gasps sounded from some nearby tables that noticed the startlingly intimate gesture. Look at me, Dante commanded softly. Serena had no choice. Her eyes locked with his. Those dark irises seemed endless at this proximity, holding her in place as firmly as his hand on her chin. Dante's face was close now, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Don't lie to me. We both know you were ignoring me deliberately. Heat flooded Serena's cheeks, from anger at being handled, from fear, and something else entirely that she refused to name. She lifted a shaky hand and tried to pry his fingers away. Dante allowed her to push his hand down, releasing her chin, but he did not retreat far. Her skin tingled where his touch had been, leaving a contradictory mix of impressions. The cool metal of a ring on his pinky finger, the surprising gentleness of his hold, despite the underlying strength. Dante raised an eyebrow, awaiting her true answer. Serena's mind raced. She could double down on denial or face the music. Considering he already admitted to knowing about her background and had specifically arranged for her to serve him, which unsettled her immensely, honesty might be all she had left. Even so, frustration and fear bubbled up as defiance. Fine, she whispered harshly, careful not to let her voice carry beyond their booth. You're right. I did it on purpose. A flash of something. Surprise, respect, crossed Dante's face. Serena went on, words tumbling out in a heated whisper. I know men like you, Mr. Moretti. You think you own everything and everyone around you. You snap your fingers and people jump. Well, I'm not one of your trained dogs. Her heart hammered. She was dangerously close to insulting him outright. She bit back the rest of what she wanted to say. That men like him were why her life went off track. Why her parents were gone. No. That part she couldn't utter. Instead, she finished with a tight, I'm just here to do my job and go home. Serve you, don't serve you, it doesn't matter in the end. I'm irrelevant to you. So let me be and we'll have no problems. The moment the words were out, Serena regretted them. Her body went cold at her own boldness. Nico, still standing guard a few feet away, stepped forward with an angry frown, clearly hearing enough to be alarmed. Dante held up a hand to halt his approach, eyes never leaving Serena's face. The other men also stayed still, though tension spiked dangerously. Serena felt like she had stepped onto a live wire. Dante's stare bore into her, unreadable and intense. Several heartbeats passed. Then, to Serena's surprise, the corners of Dante's mouth curved upward. He began to chuckle, softly at first, then a little louder. A genuine rich laugh that turned a few heads in the restaurant, though they couldn't know what was amusing the Mafia king. Serena was baffled. She had braced for anger, for threats. Instead, he was laughing. Dante ran a hand through his hair, mirth lingering in his eyes. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, Serena, he said at last, voice warm with amusement. Either way, it's been a long time since anyone spoke to me like that. Serena released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Was that a good sign? Her heart still pounded uncomfortably. Dante leaned in slightly again, tone lowering to a near purr that made the fine hairs on her arms stand up. You're not irrelevant to me, he said. Though his words were quiet, there was weight to them that made Serena shiver. The way he said it felt personal, almost intimate. She opened her mouth to reply, but just then a commotion near the restaurant's entrance drew both their attentions. The front door had swung open with a loud thud. 2 men rushed in, clad in dark street clothes, faces partially obscured by hats and bandanas. Before anyone could react, one of them shouted something in Italian, a crude curse, and gunfire erupted. Pop! 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 3 shots cracked through the once pleasant atmosphere in rapid succession. A woman screamed. Glasses shattered. Diners dove to the floor in panic. Time slowed to molasses for Serena. She watched in frozen horror as one gunman raised a pistol toward their corner booth, toward Dante. For a split second, her eyes met Dante's, and she saw a flash of something startling, not fear, but concern, directed at her. In the next heartbeat, Dante moved faster than she thought possible. He lunged across the small space, grabbing Serena by the waist. With one powerful pull, he yanked her down onto the leather seat just as a bullet whizzed past, splintering the wooden partition right behind where her head had been. Screams and chaos erupted fully around them. Serena's world tilted as Dante pressed her down, covering her with his own body. Her back hit the leather seat and he was half atop her, shielding her with a solid chest and arms bracketing her protectively. The sharp scent of gunpowder filled the air, mixed with terrified cries and the crash of overturned chairs. Serena's ears rang from the gunshots. For a disorienting moment, all she could register was Dante's weight pinning her, his face so close that she saw the fierce light in his eyes. "Stay down," he growled near her ear. Gone was the cool, teasing tone. Now his voice was all command and urgency. Another shot rang out, hitting the table's edge with a burst of splinters. Dante's men had drawn their own weapons, overturning the heavy table for cover. Nico and another guard returned fire methodically toward the attackers, as guests crawled away screaming. Serena's mind caught up. An attack was happening, and Dante was the target. The men who burst in were gunning for him. She shouldn't be surprised. A man like Dante surely had many enemies, but nothing prepared her for being literally caught in the crossfire. Her breath came in short gasps, adrenaline surging. She felt Dante's hand curl over her head gently, pressing it down to protect from debris. She turned her face just enough to see a trickle of blood on his other arm. A shard of flying glass from an exploded wine bottle had sliced him, bright red seeping against his white cuff. Before she could think, Serena reacted. In a strange bubble of calm amid the panic, her old training kicked in. She'd had basic first aid classes, even considered EMT volunteering in school. With shaking fingers, she grabbed a clean napkin that had fallen from the table and pressed it to Dante's bleeding forearm. He glanced down in surprise at her action. "It's nothing," he said, almost dismissively, but his gaze lingered on her, softening for a split second. Another hail of bullets cracked. The attackers were relentless. It sounded like more rounds hit walls. The bar's mirror shattered with a crash. The air was thick with terror and plaster dust. From behind the overturned table, Nico shouted, "Boss, we need to get you out of here. Back exit now." Dante nodded sharply. He shifted off Serena just enough to give her a hard look. "Stay low and come with me." It was not a request. His tone allowed no argument. Outside their protective cocoon, Serena became aware of everything at once. A sobbing woman huddled under a table, a man yelling for someone to call the police, the moans of an injured patron. Her heart ached at the chaos. "I can't just leave these people," Serena stammered. She spotted a wounded busboy on the floor a few feet away, clutching his leg where blood pooled. Instinct kicked in. She started to rise, intent on going to help him. Dante's hand clamped on her wrist, lightning quick. "Don't!" he hissed, eyes fierce. "You'll get shot." Torn between fear and duty, Serena looked helplessly at the boy writhing in pain. Only a teenager, his face ashen. Dante followed her gaze, then swore under his breath in Italian. With a jerk of his chin, he signaled one of his men. "Mario, grab the kid on your way out," he ordered. Immediately, the burly guard lunged toward the injured busboy, hefting him under the arms. Relief flooded Serena that the boy would be tended. Dante was already pulling her along, crouch-walking with Nico as cover. Serena held tight to Dante's arm as they moved swiftly toward the kitchen corridor that led to the back door. Gunfire still popped. One of Dante's men fired a covering shot that bought them a second. Serena felt a rush of air as another bullet zinged past her ear, striking the kitchen's swinging door ahead. She choked back a scream, focusing on moving, one foot in front of the other while staying hunched. They slipped through the swinging door into the stainless steel expanse of the kitchen. Frightened staff pressed themselves against counters, screaming at the sudden eruption of violence in their midst. Nico led the way to the rear exit, his gun raised. Dante kept his body between Serena and any danger, shielding her through the maze of counters and hanging pots. Serena's hand was clasped in his now, white-knuckled and holding for dear life. At the back, one of Dante's men kicked open the emergency exit. The alley outside was dimly lit. A black SUV idled just beyond, headlights off. Likely Dante's getaway vehicle, summoned by his forward-thinking crew. Nico dashed out first, checking the alley. "Clear," he barked. Dante hurried Serena toward the SUV. Mario followed, carrying the injured busboy, who whimpered but clung to consciousness. Another guard remained at the door, covering their retreat. Within seconds, Serena was bundled into the back seat of the SUV. Dante slid in right after, slamming the door. Nico jumped into the driver's seat and the engine roared to life. Tires squealed as they sped off into the night, leaving the carnage behind. Serena pressed herself into the leather seat, chest heaving as reality crashed down. She had just survived a shootout. Now she was in a car with the Mafia. She'd left her workplace in chaos, injured people behind, the police likely on their way. And her manager, Mira, probably wondering if she'd been kidnapped or killed. "Everyone okay?" Nico called from the front, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Dante quickly assessed. Serena seemed physically unhurt, just shaking like a leaf. Mario was applying pressure to the busboy's leg wound with the napkin Serena had given Dante, now repurposed for the worse injury. The teen groaned softly, but he was alive. "I've got you, kid. Stay with me," Mario muttered, trying to staunch the bleeding. Dante responded, "Go to docks, now." Nico nodded, making a sharp turn that pressed Serena against Dante. Serena barely registered she was practically leaning into Dante's side. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably as adrenaline dumped. "Where are you taking me?" she managed, voice trembling. "To somewhere safe," Dante replied firmly. "And where he nodded toward the injured boy, "can get help." Serena gulped a breath, trying to steady herself. She realized her hands were sticky. Looking down, she saw Dante's blood from his cut had smeared on her palms. She stared at the red stain, and suddenly it all caught up to her in a dizzying rush. The gunshots, the screams, being held down under Dante's arms as bullets flew. Her vision blurred. She was fainting. No, stay awake," she urged herself, but the shock was too much. She swayed. "Serena, look at me," Dante's voice cut through the haze. His arm tightened around her shoulders to steady her. She blinked hard, focusing on his face inches from hers in the dim car. His expression was uncharacteristically gentle, brow furrowed in concern. "That's it, breathe," Dante said. It was strangely comforting, how calm and steady his voice remained even now. Serena took a shuddery breath, then another, her vision clearing. "There you go," he murmured, holding her until she nodded that she was okay. Only then did he ease his protective hold, though he kept his arm resting behind her. Serena shut her eyes for a moment, centering herself as best she could. She pictured her little brother's face. She needed to stay alive and sane for him. A tear escaped down her cheek before she could stop it. "My brother," she croaked suddenly, eyes snapping open. He's home alone. If those men..." She looked at Dante in alarm, horrified that if the attackers thought she was close to Dante, they might target her family. Dante's face hardened in understanding. "Nico, phone," he ordered. Nico tossed a cell phone back without hesitation. Dante caught it and handed it to Serena. "Call your brother, now. Tell him to lock all the doors and windows. Stay inside until he hears from you again." Dante's tone left no room for delay. Hands shaking, Serena dialed Danny's number from memory. It rang seemingly forever. "Please answer," a sleepy voice finally picked up. "Hello? Danny," Serena burst out, more urgently than she meant to. Her 12-year-old brother's voice immediately sharpened with worry. "Serena, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Serena struggled to sound calm. I'm fine, honey." Her voice quavered, undermining her claim. She swallowed. "Listen carefully. I need you to go around the house right now and make sure every door and window is locked, okay? Don't open the door for anyone, no matter what." On the line, Danny paused, confused and afraid. "It's late. Did something happen? You're scaring me." Serena closed her eyes, pressing back more tears. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to scare you. Just trust me and do this. And stay away from the windows. Maybe stay in our bedroom." There was a shuffling sound, likely Danny hurrying to check locks as told. "Oh, okay, I'm doing it," he said, a little breathless. "But where are you? When are you coming home?" Serena bit her lip. I'll be home as soon as I can. I promise. Just stay put and keep your phone close. If you need anything, call the police, okay? Actually, she rethought, glancing at Dante's men. If those shooters were still roaming, were police safer or would that draw attention? But she trusted the cops in their area to respond properly. Yes, call 911 if anyone tries to get in or if you hear anything weird. But don't open the door at all, she emphasized. Serena, Danny's voice was small. You're in trouble, aren't you? Her heart clenched. He was perceptive. Since their parents died, he'd matured faster than his years. I'll be okay, she said, infusing as much confidence as she could. I'll explain everything later. Just do what I ask, please. I love you, Danny. A shaky breath. I love you too. Please come home soon. I will, she whispered, and gently ended the call. Serena handed the phone back to Dante with a trembling hand. Thank you, she murmured, sincere. Despite every instinct telling her not to trust a man like him, in this moment she was grateful he understood and acted to protect her brother. Dante simply nodded, slipping the phone away. He'll be all right. I'll have someone discreetly watch your street. Just in case. Serena should question how he could arrange that so easily, but she didn't. The fact that he would spare resources for her brother's safety at a time like this. She was grudgingly astonished. Meanwhile, Nico sped through the city streets. Sirens wailed in the distance, likely rushing to the restaurant they'd fled. Serena slumped back, the fight draining out of her. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, so she clasped them tightly in her lap to hide it. After a few minutes that felt both like an instant and an eternity, the SUV pulled into a quiet side street and then into an underground garage beneath a nondescript building. A sign at the entrance read, Fontana Imports, deliveries only. The gate rolled down behind them, enclosing them in dim fluorescent light. They stopped by an elevator bay. Nico cut the engine. Mario carefully opened the door and got out with the injured busboy still in his arms. A middle-aged man in a collared shirt and a younger woman in nurse scrubs rushed over from a side door with a stretcher. This him? The man asked curtly, already guiding Mario to lay the teenager down. Dante nodded. Stray bullet to the leg, through and through. Keep him stable and anonymous, Doc. The doctor was already examining the wound as the nurse cut open the pant leg. You got it. I'll take care of him. Who's the girl? He added in a lower tone, flicking a glance at Serena as if asking whether she needed treatment. Serena started to answer, but Dante stepped in. She's with me, he said firmly, as if that explained everything. She's fine. Maybe a scratch or two. See to him first. In truth, Serena had a few minor scrapes on her hands and knees she hadn't noticed, likely from crawling or falling during the escape. But nothing serious. She was largely okay. The doctor and nurse whisked the stretcher away, presumably to a private clinic space Dante had set up. Mario followed to assist. Nico lingered by the car, speaking quietly into a phone, likely coordinating security or getting updates on the attack. That left Serena standing by Dante in the cool garage, utterly out of her depth. Now that immediate danger had passed, an awkward silence grew. Serena realized she was essentially alone with Dante Moretti, the notorious Mafia boss she had been desperate to avoid hours ago. How the tables had turned. Here she was, saved by the very man she defied, her life still in his hands in more ways than one. She must have swayed on her feet, because Dante gently touched her elbow. You should sit. You've had a shock. Serena let him guide her to a low concrete step by the wall. She sank down, legs weak. Thank you, she murmured, taking a moment to breathe. It was all she could think to say. Dante crouched down in front of her so he could look her in the eye. In the harsh light, his features were a mix of hard angles and unexpected softness. A streak of blood, his, stained his shirt sleeve, but he seemed unbothered by his own injury. His focus was entirely on her. You're safe here, he said quietly. No one can reach you, I promise. Something in his tone made her believe him. She nodded faintly. Those men, they were trying to kill you. It wasn't a question, more a stunned realization spoken aloud. A muscle in Dante's jaw ticked. Yes, Serena hesitated, then asked, Because of who you are? Dante's lips pressed into a thin line. His eyes flickered with some emotion she couldn't quite read. Anger, regret, shame. It was gone in an instant. That would be a fair assumption, he answered finally. Serena lowered her gaze. She had resented him as a criminal, but seeing the violent consequences of his world firsthand was entirely different. People were hurt, nearly killed tonight, including possibly herself, all because of these feuds and power plays. A wave of anger surged through her, mingled with exhaustion. Without thinking, she blurted, This is exactly why I didn't want anything to do with you." Her voice trembled, but once she started, she couldn't stop. "People around you get hurt. Your world, it destroys everything it touches. I just wanted to serve tables and go home to my brother. But now—" Her voice broke. "Now I might have lost my job. Innocent people are injured. I'm sitting here covered in blood and—" She wiped at her cheeks, only then realizing tears were spilling. Dante listened silently, face unreadable. When she trailed off, trying to stifle her sobs, he spoke in a measured tone. "I won't let anything happen to you or your brother," he said. It was gentle but with an undercurrent of steel. "I will cover the medical costs of anyone hurt tonight, and the damages to the restaurant. You won't lose your job." He paused, then added wryly, "Unless you still want to quit after this." Serena managed a shaky laugh through her tears at that unexpected remark. The idea of returning to work like normal after tonight was almost absurd. She sniffled, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She hadn't anticipated breaking down in front of Dante Moretti, of all people. Mortified at her outburst, she tried to compose herself. "Here," Dante said softly. He offered a pristine handkerchief from his pocket. She took it hesitantly and dabbed her eyes. It smelled like him, that subtle cologne. "Thank you," she whispered, not just for the cloth, but for what he'd promised. She wasn't sure if she could fully trust his word, but something about the way he said it made her feel oddly reassured. An awkward stillness settled in the garage. The emotional whirlwind of the night was catching up to both of them. Serena realized Dante was still crouched there at eye level, showing surprising patience as she gathered herself. He cleared his throat lightly. "What you said earlier, in the restaurant." He trailed off, gaze drifting past her shoulder as if recalling her heated words. Serena's stomach dropped. Would he punish her now for that insolence? She braced, spine stiffening, but Dante's eyes met hers again and he looked almost contrite. "You were right, in a way," he admitted quietly. "People around me do get hurt. It's why I keep certain boundaries, why I usually don't let myself care about anyone outside my circle." Serena felt a small tug in her chest at the rawness in his tone. Was Dante Moretti confessing regret? He continued, "I don't want what happened tonight to happen ever again. Especially not to you." The intensity in that last line made her breath hitch. She searched his face. "Then maybe you should keep away from me," she said softly, though the thought made an unexpected pang in her heart. After all, she'd wanted nothing but distance from him at first, right? Dante's expression hardened with resolve. "No, that would be worse. Those men saw you. They'll think you're connected to me now. If they're foolish enough to try again, they could target you to get at me." Serena's blood ran cold. She hadn't considered that. By getting involved tonight, she and Danny might now be targets. She could never forgive herself if harm came to her brother because of her. What do we do then?" she asked, voice a fragile whisper. Dante rose from his crouch in one fluid motion. He extended a hand to her. "We ensure they can't hurt you. That means staying somewhere secure until my men find out who they were and deal with it." Serena stared at his offered hand, then up at him. "Staying somewhere secure? You mean with you?" He inclined his head. "My home is heavily guarded. Or a safe house, if you prefer. But I promise you'll be protected. You have my word, Serena." The idea of stepping even deeper into his world frightened her. Yet, could she really go back to her apartment and pretend everything was fine? If he was right, she and Danny might be in danger as witnesses or perceived pawns. She realized she already implicitly trusted Dante to keep that promise. He had saved her life tonight, and he had shown concern for her brother's safety too. Slowly, Serena placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers firmly, their warmth steadying her frayed nerves. "Oh, okay," she conceded quietly. "Just until this is sorted." She added the qualifier to herself to feel less like she was surrendering her normal life entirely. Dante gently pulled her to her feet. The world spun a bit. She was still drained. He caught her by the elbow to steady her. Standing this close, Serena was reminded anew how tall and solid he was. Yet she didn't feel scared, just aware. "All right," Dante said, a hint of relief in his voice. He turned to Nico, who had finished his call and was watching respectfully. "Bring the car around front. We'll head home." Nico nodded and jogged off to retrieve the vehicle to street level. Dante looked back at Serena. "We'll pick up your brother on the way," he said. Serena's eyes widened. "Pick up Danny?" "But," Dante raised a placating hand. "He'll be safer under guard with us. You'll feel better having him where you can see he's okay, no?" Serena had to admit the thought of having Danny with her was a huge relief. She hated leaving him alone when dangerous people were at large. Still, bringing a 12-year-old into a mobster's home felt crazy. Dante must have sensed her hesitation. "I have a younger sister," he offered unexpectedly, voice gentler. "She's older than your brother now, but when she was little, I took care of her. I know how important siblings are. I give you my word. I'll treat Danny as if he were family, all right?" The sincerity in his tone melted Serena's remaining resistance. She nodded. "Thank you." As Nico pulled the car around, Serena quickly texted Danny to expect her soon and that a friend was driving her. She left out specifics, just told him to pack an overnight bag. She had a feeling they wouldn't return home immediately. It felt surreal sending such instructions to her kid brother. Moments later, Dante was guiding Serena into the back seat of a different car, a low-key black sedan this time. Dante took the seat beside her, while Nico drove. 15 minutes later, they arrived on Serena's quiet residential street. It was nearly midnight. Danny was peeking from behind the curtains anxiously. Serena insisted she approach the door alone to avoid scaring him with strange men. Dante agreed, hanging back by the car with Nico. The moment Serena unlocked the door, Danny yanked it open and flung himself into her arms. "I was so scared," he mumbled against her, voice wobbling. She hugged him fiercely, heart hurting with love and relief. "It's okay, I'm okay," she whispered. "But we have to leave for a bit, honey. Just for safety. I promise I'll explain later." Danny pulled back, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. That's when he noticed the black sedan at the curb and the two imposing figures standing near it under the street lamp. He looked up at Serena, worried and confused. "Who's that?" Serena swallowed. "Some friends of mine." At least one of them felt that way now. "It's safe, I promise. They're here to help." She grabbed a small duffel and quickly tossed in some of Danny's clothes, a toothbrush, his handheld game, things to keep him comfortable. When they stepped out, Dante moved a little into the light. He offered Danny a gentle, if cautious, smile. "Hello, Daniel. I'm Dante Moretti, a friend of your sister's." Danny's eyes grew huge at the name. He edged closer to Serena, but bravely managed a polite, "Hi." Dante's gaze flicked to Serena as if confirming Danny knew who he was. She gave a slight nod. Danny likely recognized the name from hushed news reports or local lore. "Right, well," Dante said kindly, "let's get going so you both can rest. You can bring your backpack, of course." He opened the rear car door. "Serena, why don't you sit back here with your brother? I'll take the front." It was a thoughtful gesture to reduce Danny's anxiety. Serena slid in, letting Danny enter next to her, and Dante took the passenger seat. As the car pulled away, Serena kept an arm around Danny, who stared wide-eyed at Dante's profile in the front. After a few silent minutes, Danny mustered the nerve to whisper to Serena, "That's really him, isn't it?" Serena gave a tiny nod. Danny frowned, still whispering, "Are we in danger because of him?" Serena squeezed her brother's shoulder. "We were, but I think we're safe now. He saved my life tonight, Danny, and he's going to make sure we're okay." Danny glanced toward Dante. The Mafia boss pretended not to hear their hushed conversation, gazing out his window. With a child's blunt curiosity, Danny spoke up louder. "Mr. Moretti?" Dante glanced over his shoulder. "You can call me Dante." "Dante, are you really a Mafia boss?" Danny asked, voice trembling slightly. Like on TV?" Serena cringed. "Danny, that's not—" But Dante didn't seem offended. He replied gently, "I was, yes. But I promise, I'm one of the good guys tonight. I won't let anyone hurt you or your sister, okay?" Danny studied him, as if weighing the truth of his words. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay." The rest of the ride passed in quiet. Serena felt exhaustion pulling at her, but adrenaline still coursed. City lights gave way to a more secluded, upscale area by the water. The sedan wound up a private drive to an impressive estate surrounded by high walls and wrought iron gates. With a signal from Nico, the gates opened to reveal a villa-like mansion framed by gardens, and overlooking, as Serena glimpsed, the dark expanse of the bay or ocean beyond. The car stopped under a columned portico. Even in darkness, the house exuded luxury. Soft exterior lights illuminated archways and balconies draped in bougainvillea. It looked like a Mediterranean retreat transplanted near the city. "This is your house?" Danny breathed, awe temporarily eclipsing his fear. "Yes," Dante said, stepping out and then opening the rear door. "It's home." He helped Danny out with a reassuring hand on the boy's back, then offered his other hand to Serena. She took it, stepping out onto the cobbled drive. The night air smelled of salt and jasmine. An older woman with gray-streaked hair hurried out the grand front doors, her face etched with concern. "Dante, grazie a Dio, I've been worried sick." By her apron and familiarity, Serena guessed this was the housekeeper, or perhaps a relative. "I'm all right, Carmela," Dante assured, patting her arm. "But we have guests. Could you prepare the blue bedroom for Miss Serena and her brother? They'll be staying." Carmela's gaze fell on Serena and Danny, taking in their rumpled, blood-stained clothes and exhausted faces. She clicked her tongue sympathetically. "Of course. I'll run a bath and set out fresh clothes, too." She gave Serena a kindly nod. "Welcome, dear. You're safe here." Serena managed a grateful smile. "Thank you." Dante led them through the open double doors into a foyer with a sweeping marble staircase. A chandelier cast warm light over polished wood floors. The interior was elegant and inviting, not ostentatious. Serena's eyes briefly caught paintings of what looked like Italian countryside scenes on the walls, and a faint scent of lemon and cedar, perhaps recently cleaned wood, and Dante's cologne intermingled. Carmela hurried ahead up the stairs. Dante gestured for Serena and Danny to follow. "This way." They walked down a long hallway on the second floor, past a series of closed doors, until Dante opened a set of double doors at the end. Inside was a spacious bedroom suite done in soft blues and creams. A 4-poster king bed dominated the main room, and through an archway they could see a smaller attached sitting room with a daybed and sofa. French doors likely led to a balcony with a view of the grounds. Serena felt Danny squeeze her hand, his earlier awe returning at the sheer opulence. Carmela was already bustling about, pulling plush towels from a cabinet and laying out what looked like pajamas on the bed. "The ensuite bathroom is through there," she pointed to a side door. "Why don't I draw a warm bath for the young master? Poor thing looks like he could use it." Danny looked to Serena for approval. At her nod, he allowed Carmela to gently shepherd him towards the bathroom, though he kept glancing back to ensure Serena was still in sight. "I'll be right here, Danny," Serena assured him softly. Only when he disappeared into the tiled bath with Carmela did she sway on her feet, exhaustion washing over her. Dante was at her side in an instant, steadying her elbow. "Easy. It's been a long night." Serena gave him a tired smile. "You can say that again." He led her to a tufted bench at the foot of the bed. "Sit. I'll ask Carmela to bring something warm to drink." "Really? Serena started to protest that he needn't trouble himself, but Dante was already at the door. Speaking low to another staff member who appeared, Serena caught the word tea and something about milk for the boy. The efficiency of his household was impressive. As Dante returned, Serena looked down at her stained clothes, a stark reminder of the night's events. Blood, wine, dust. She'd have to burn this uniform, she thought wryly. As if reading her mind, Dante offered, "There are clean clothes there." He nodded to the neatly folded piles Carmela had set out. "They might be a little loose, but it's better than what you have." Serena eyed the clothing, a soft-looking ivory sweater and drawstring linen pants for her, and a pair of boys' pajamas for Danny. "Thank you. This is so kind. Way more than we could ever ask." Dante's expression turned serious. "You two can ask me for anything." "You know that, right?" Her cheeks warmed under his steady gaze. I appreciate it," she said quietly. So much had shifted between them, yet she still wasn't sure how to navigate it. This morning, she would never have believed she'd be in Dante Moretti's guest room, feeling oddly safe. Dante cleared his throat almost shyly. "I'll let you get cleaned up and rest. My room is just down the hall if you need anything. Carmela or one of the staff will be posted nearby as well." Serena stood, an impulse making her reach out to touch his arm lightly. "Dante." It was the first time she addressed him by first name directly. It felt intimate but right. He looked at her, eyebrows raised slightly in question. She mustered a small smile. "I just wanted to say I misjudged you. Tonight you saved me, protected my brother. I won't forget that. So thank you." Her voice was earnest, almost tender. His dark eyes softened. "No thanks needed. I'm just sorry you got dragged into my mess." She shook her head. "Maybe it was my fate for being so stubborn," she said with a tired chuckle. Dante gave a faint smile. They stood there for a moment, the air between them thick with words unspoken. He looked like he wanted to say something more, but just then Carmela re-emerged with Danny, who was now clean, damp-haired and dressed in the 2 big pajamas, likely hand-me-downs from Dante's family, Serena guessed. The boy yawned widely. Carmela smiled at them. "He's all set. Already nodding off. Indeed, Danny blinked heavy lids, instinctively moving to Serena's side. Serena wrapped an arm around him. Thank you, Carmela. For everything. The housekeeper waved a hand. Think nothing of it. I'll leave some cocoa here if he wants it, and chamomile tea for you. She nodded toward the side table where a tray with mugs had been placed. Then with a pointed look at Dante, she added, You should get some rest too, ragazzo. It's nearly morning. I will, Dante promised. He gently squeezed Carmela's shoulder. Thank you. Once Carmela departed, Dante turned back to Serena and Danny. The boy was half asleep against Serena. I'll let you both get some sleep, Dante said softly. He hesitated, then reached out to ruffle Danny's hair. Good night, Danny. You're safe here. Danny managed a drowsy smile. Good night, Dante. He then shuffled toward the small daybed in the attached room, mumbling, Is it okay if I sleep here, Serena? It's cool, like my own little room. Serena helped him onto the daybed, tucking the provided blanket around him. I'll be right in the next room if you need me, okay? Okay, he murmured, already curling up with the ease of a child who, despite the drama, now felt secure enough to sleep. Serena stepped back to the main bedroom where Dante still lingered by the door, as if unwilling to leave until he was certain they were all right. Their eyes met. In the warm lamplight, his face showed the strain of the night. A faint bruise on his temple she hadn't noticed before. Lines of worry around his eyes. Yet he offered her a small smile. Try to get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning. Good night, Dante, she said softly. He inclined his head. Good night, Serena. On impulse, she added, Sweet dreams. It was a simple phrase, but the way his eyes warmed at it sent a flutter through her. With one last lingering glance, Dante slipped out, pulling the double doors gently shut behind him. Serena released a long breath. What a day. No, what a night. She changed out of her ruined uniform into the soft sweater and linen pants. As Carmela thought, they were a tad roomy, but clean and comfortable. She washed her face and hands in the ensuite sink, watching reddish-tinged water swirl away. It felt symbolic, washing away the blood and fear of the day. Finally, she padded barefoot back into the bedroom. She peeked in on Danny, sound asleep, mouth slightly open, his small chest rising and falling steadily. Relief swelled in her. They were safe. Serena climbed into the enormous bed, the sheets cool and inviting. When she clicked off the lamp, darkness enveloped the room, broken only by a sliver of moonlight through the drapes. Yet she lay awake for a while, her mind refusing to shut off. Every time she closed her eyes, the night's images replayed. Dante's hand with that ring reaching to tilt her chin, the muzzle flashes of guns, his arms around her under the table, his voice telling her to breathe, the determined look on his face as he vowed to protect them. She turned over, staring at the ceiling. Outside, waves gently lapped and a nightbird trilled. It was peaceful here, a world away from the violence of earlier. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her. Serena drifted into a restless sleep, dreams populated by dark shapes chasing her through a labyrinth of restaurant tables and shattered glass. But each time terror threatened to overwhelm, a strong arm would pull her out of danger, and a low, steady voice would call her name, guiding her through the chaos. In the end, it wasn't fear she felt, but the steady beat of a heart against her cheek and the warmth of a protective embrace carrying her into the light. Morning light found Serena awakened by the distant sound of waves and the unfamiliar comfort of silk sheets. For a blissful, drowsy instant, she forgot where she was. She snuggled into the plush bed, thinking she was home in her own lumpy mattress. But then her eyes flew open, taking in the elegant blue room. The events of the previous night came crashing back. She sat up quickly, heart rate spiking, until she saw a small form curled on the daybed in the adjacent sitting room. Danny. Safe. Still sleeping, his arm thrown over a pillow. Serena exhaled in relief. They had made it through the night. Sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains, painting the room in gentle gold. A glance at the ornate clock on the wall told her it was past 9 a.m. She never slept this late, especially not on a workday. Work, the restaurant, what must they think? And Mira? But as she rose, wincing at a bruise on her knee, Serena realized going back to the restaurant was out of the question for now. Everything had changed. She needed to speak to Dante, to understand what came next. Quietly, she peeked in at Danny once more. He was exhausted enough to keep sleeping. Better to let him. Serena decided to freshen up. She found her uniform from last night had vanished. Someone must have whisked it away to wash or burn. In its place lay a neat stack of casual clothes that fit her well enough. Jeans and a soft blue blouse. Possibly belonging to Dante's late mother or sister. Serena changed quickly, combed her dark hair with her fingers, and slipped out to find Dante. The house was silent in the way large homes often are, each sound swallowed by high ceilings and hallways. Serena followed the faint aroma of coffee down the grand staircase and toward an open set of double doors that led to a sunny patio. There she found Dante, standing by a wrought iron table set with breakfast. He was on the phone, speaking low and serious in Italian. He wore a crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing sinewy forearms and more of those swirling tattoos. In daylight, they gave him an even more dangerous appeal, yet here he was buttering a piece of toast while on a business call. He looked up as Serena stepped onto the patio. Their eyes met, and Dante's hardened expression immediately softened. He said a quick goodbye into the phone and set it aside. "Good morning," he greeted, genuine warmth in his tone that sent a small flutter through Serena's stomach. "Morning," she replied, suddenly shy. She smoothed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. She hadn't exactly had a chance to brush it. It probably looked a mess. If it did, Dante didn't seem to mind. He gestured to the table. "Please join me. I wasn't sure what you like, but we have fruit, pastries, and coffee, of course." At the mention of coffee, Serena realized how much she needed caffeine. "Coffee sounds amazing," she said, moving to one of the cushioned chairs. A gentle sea breeze caressed her face. The patio overlooked a manicured garden sloping toward a glittering expanse of water beyond the property fence. The bay, she guessed. It was breathtaking. "This place is beautiful," she said softly, taking it in. Dante poured her a cup from a silver carafe. "It was my father's idea. He always wanted a home by the water. Reminded him of the old country." Serena accepted the coffee. "Your father, is he—" "He passed years ago," Dante replied matter-of-factly, though she heard an undertone of pain. "My mother as well, shortly after. I ended up with the house." "I'm sorry," Serena said, heartfelt. She knew what it was like to lose both parents. Dante nodded in thanks. He took a seat across from her. For a moment, both were quiet, sipping coffee and letting the morning calm wrap around them. Finally, Dante spoke. "I have news. About last night." Serena set down her cup, tensing slightly. "What did you find out?" His jaw hardened. "The men who attacked were hired guns, not directly affiliated with any major family. Likely mercenaries paid by someone who wanted to send a message." "Message?" Serena echoed. "To you?" Dante inclined his head. "To me. Or specifically about you." She blinked, unease rising. "Me? I don't even know anyone who would—" Dante held up a hand gently. "It seems word got around quickly that I took an interest in a waitress. Perhaps someone thought to exploit that. One of my rivals, Franco Bianchi, he's been getting bold lately. My sources suggest he orchestrated the hit, thinking to catch me off guard in public. And when they saw me, protective of you, they gave them the idea to use you as leverage." Serena swallowed hard. "So if I hadn't been there, they might not have attacked?" Dante frowned. "No, don't think that. They came to kill me. You being there was just an opportunity to unsettle me. Franco has been looking for a chance to strike. If not last night, another time soon." She processed that. It alleviated a sliver of guilt she didn't realize she carried. Guilt that by provoking Dante, she might have triggered the chaos. But it also sank in deeper that she was entangled in his dangerous world now by mere association. "What will you do?" she asked quietly, dreading the answer. Dante's eyes hardened. "I'm going to deal with Franco before he tries something like that again. I've already sent a message to arrange a meeting to settle this once and for all." Serena's stomach nodded. A meeting in Dante's terms likely meant a violent confrontation. "Dante," he looked at her steadily. "This is how it has to be, Serena. If I don't respond decisively, others will see weakness. More could come after us. I won't have you or Danny living under threat. I need to end it." His use of us and the fierce protectiveness in his voice made Serena's heart tug. But the prospect of more violence, of Dante risking his life in a mob showdown, terrified her. "There's been enough bloodshed," she pleaded softly. "Isn't there another way? Could you involve the police? If you know Bianchi did this—" She stopped at Dante's look. It wasn't anger, but disappointment. "You know I can't go to the police, Serena. Not without damning myself and my own people. The law, it doesn't protect men like me. We handle things our way." Serena lowered her gaze. Of course, the law. For a moment she'd let herself forget who he was. She rubbed her temples, anxiety building. Dante reached across the table and gently rested his hand over hers. The contact was warm and unexpectedly comforting. "I promise I'll be careful," he said, voice low. "I've survived many years in this life. I have no intention of leaving it in a box." She flinched at the morbid phrase. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. "I also have no intention of allowing Franco to ever come near you or Danny again. Once this is handled, you'll be free. You both will." Free. The word hung in the air. It implied that right now they weren't free. They were caught in Dante's orbit until he settled this. Serena realized with a small shock that after last night, she did feel a sort of safety in Dante's presence she hadn't expected. Her eyes drifted to where his thumb absently stroked the back of her hand. Such a small gesture, yet it sent her pulse jumping. She should pull away. Remind herself that for all his heroics, Dante was still a criminal. But it was hard to reconcile the ruthless Mafia boss with the man sitting here gently comforting her, making sure she had sugar for her coffee, worrying about her safety. "Thank you," she murmured, voice catching. "For everything. I know I was harsh with you before. Maybe I was naive." She gave a weak laugh. "The law doesn't always stop bad people, I know that. Sometimes I just wish it did. So that you wouldn't have to put yourself in danger again." A wry smile tugged at Dante's lips. "Listen to you, worrying about me now." Serena flushed. "Is that so strange? You've done a lot for me in a very short time. I'm not ungrateful." He looked pleased by her answer. His hand still loosely held hers. Serena hadn't made any move to withdraw it, and truthfully she didn't want to. Dante's gaze flickered to her lips for just an instant before returning to her eyes. Her breath hitched. Had she imagined that? Across the table, Dante's face grew more serious, almost vulnerable. "Last night, when I thought something might happen to you..." He paused, searching for words. "It was different than anything I've felt in a long time. I've seen a lot, done a lot, but the fear that struck me when those bullets flew toward you, that was new." Serena felt a flush creeping up her neck. Was he saying what she thought he was? "I realized," Dante continued quietly, "that I would do anything to keep you safe. Even walk away from all of this, if I could. If that's what it takes." Her eyes widened. "Walk away?" Did he mean the criminal life? Could he even do that? Dante gave a faint smile. "Don't look so surprised. You said something yesterday about me thinking I own everything. Maybe that was true once. But you showed me something else. You showed me not everyone can be bought or intimidated, that some people have real strength and principles. It made me remember a part of myself I thought was long gone." Serena's throat felt tight. She was deeply moved and didn't know how to respond. She squeezed his hand slightly, letting the gesture speak for her. He went on, voice earnest. "When this business with Franco is done, I'm considering changes. I have money and resources. I could disappear, start fresh somewhere quiet, and if..." He hesitated. "If you wanted, maybe you and Danny could too. Away from all this." Serena's eyes stung suddenly. Was he offering them an escape together? It sounded a lot like it. "You barely know us," she said softly, though her heart leapt at the idea of a life away from fear, and surprisingly, at the idea of Dante being part of that life. "I know enough," Dante replied, deep voice warm. "You're brave, loyal, you care for your family fiercely. You're everything good I've been missing. And Danny? He reminds me a bit of myself at his age, protective of his sister." He smiled knowingly. Serena let out a soft laugh, wiping a tear that escaped. "He is a little protector, though he still sleeps with a nightlight," she added affectionately. Dante chuckled. "There's no shame in that." They shared a gentle look. Serena realized how natural this felt, having coffee and talking about life and family with him like he was a close friend. Or more. Her heart began beating faster as she became acutely aware of how close they were leaning. Dante's face was only a foot or so from hers across the small table. His hand still held hers, thumb caressing small circles that made her skin tingle. She felt heat rising in her cheeks again, but this time it wasn't from anger or fear. It was from attraction. Undeniable mutual attraction. Am I really falling for him? She wondered, astonished at herself. But how could she not be moved by this man who proved more than his fearsome reputation, who showed her kindness and kept her safe? The moment stretched, golden and delicate. Dante's eyes dropped once more to her lips, this time lingering. Serena's breath caught. She found herself leaning forward ever so slightly, drawn in as if by gravity. Dante mirrored her, leaning closer across the table. The world narrowed to just them. The distant cry of a seagull and the rustle of vines fell away. Serena's lips parted, her heart racing in anticipation. She could see a new softness in Dante's usually guarded expression, something yearning that echoed her own feelings. He was going to kiss her, and she wanted him to, despite everything she truly did. Suddenly, The sharp trill of a phone ringing inside the house shattered the moment. Serena jolted back, and Dante closed his eyes with a frustrated sigh at the interruption. He reluctantly released her hand. Nico's muffled voice called from the foyer, "Boss, it's urgent!" Dante stood, his demeanor shifting back to business in a blink. "Give me a minute," he replied toward the door. Then to Serena, voice rueful, "I'm sorry. I have to take this. It might be about Franco." Serena nodded, trying to ignore the wild fluttering in her chest that had been left unresolved. "Of course. It's okay." Her voice was steadier than she felt. He hesitated, looking like he wished he could stay. But the phone rang again, and duty pulled him away. Dante squeezed her shoulder gently, then strode inside to handle whatever crisis awaited. Serena exhaled and sank back in her chair. Her whole body tingled with adrenaline of a very different kind than last night. She pressed her fingertips to her lips, almost in disbelief at how close they'd come to crossing that line. "Focus, Serena," she chided herself, though a smile tugged at her mouth. The fact remained. She had feelings for Dante Moretti. Against all logic, the mysterious Mafia boss had carved a space in her heart. She knew she should be cautious. Falling for someone like him was bound to be complicated. But if he really meant what he said about leaving his life behind, maybe there was a chance for them. A future she never imagined, far from waitressing or prosecuting mobsters, and instead with one of them by her side as a changed man. Her hopeful musings were cut short by raised voices inside the house. "What do you mean, gone?" Dante's voice, thunderous and alarmed. Serena shot up from her seat, heart in her throat. Gone? She hurried inside to the foyer, where Dante, Nico, and a couple of other men stood in a tense huddle. Dante had a phone pressed to his ear so hard his knuckles were white. "When?" He barked into it. He listened for a second. "Find him now, or so help me." He growled and tossed the phone onto a side table with a clatter, raking a hand through his hair in panic. Serena stepped forward, fear spiking through her. "Dante? What happened?" Dante turned to her, and the look on his face made her blood run cold. It was a mixture of worry and barely restrained rage. "It's your brother," he said, voice strained. "Danny is gone." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. Serena just stared. "Gone? What do you—" "He's upstairs sleeping. I just saw him—" She whirled, ready to dash back to the bedroom, but Nico stepped into her path, gently grabbing her shoulders. "Serena, he's not there," Nico said, grim resignation in his voice. "I checked. The window in the sitting room is wide open." "Open?" Serena's mind reeled. She had left it closed, hadn't she? Her body went cold. No, he can't be." With surprising tenderness, Nico squeezed her shoulders, steadying her. "We found this by the window." He held up a small white card. On it, scrawled in black marker, were chilling words. "If you want your kid brother back, come to where it all began. Alone. F." Serena recognized it as a business card from the restaurant. Franco must have left it as an ugly calling card. She gasped, swaying on her feet. Dante was at her side in an instant, wrapping an arm around her waist. Serena hardly registered leaning into him as she read the note again. "Danny kidnapped. No, God. Please, no." "How?" Her voice shook violently. "How did they get him? We had guards." Dante looked like he was holding himself together by pure will. There was a distraction at the front gate, a van that overturned. In the commotion, someone slipped over the back wall. They likely entered through the kitchen. Danny was alone in the sitting room. It happened fast. His face twisted with guilt and fury. "They knocked out one of my men. By the time another patrol noticed, the car was gone." Serena felt like she might vomit. She clutched Dante's shirt, fisting the fabric, needing something solid. "We have to get him back," she cried, voice breaking with desperation. "He's just a child, Dante. They'll hurt him." "They won't," Dante interrupted fiercely, turning her to face him. Both his hands gripped her shoulders, not ungently but firm enough to demand her focus. "Look at me. I swear to you, we will get him back safely. I will trade my life for his if I have to. The raw determination in his tone steadied her a fraction. Serena choked back sobs and forced herself to take a breath. Her brother needed her lucid. She nodded shakily, and Dante eased his grip, though his eyes remained blazing. He spun to Nico. He said where it all began. That means the restaurant. Likely, Nico agreed. Understood, boss. Dante was already moving, shrugging on a jacket and checking a gun clip with brutal efficiency. He was the Mafia lord again, mask of cold focus sliding into place, but Serena could see his hands tremble ever so slightly. She wiped her tears, rage starting to burn through the fear. Franco had taken her baby brother. There would be no mercy. "I'm coming with you," she said, voice hardening. Dante whirled, already shaking his head. "No, absolutely not. It's a trap for me, Serena, and I'm not going to risk you too." Serena squared her shoulders, anger lending her strength. "This is my brother. I'm not staying behind. Either I go with you now, or I'll find my own way there." Dante looked torn between frustration and reluctant admiration at her resolve. Behind him, one of his other men muttered, "She's as stubborn as the boss." Nico gave a slight nod. "She might be safer with us than left here, boss, given the circumstances." Dante cursed under his breath, then jabbed a finger at Serena. "Fine. But you do exactly as I say, understood? And you stay behind me." "Understood," she replied immediately. In different circumstances, Serena might have smiled at how quickly he relented. But right now, her thoughts were only on Danny. Nico strapped an extra Kevlar vest on under his jacket and handed one to Dante, who offered it to Serena. It was too large and bulky, but she slipped it on. Dante then opened a cabinet near the foyer and pulled out a compact handgun. He hesitated only a second before holding it out to Serena. Her stomach flipped at the sight of the weapon. The memory of last night's violence was still raw. I've never... His voice was gentle but firm. "Take it. For protection. Aim and pull, that's it. I pray you won't need it, but..." Serena's hand shook as she accepted the cold metal. It felt heavy and wrong in her grasp, but she nodded resolutely. "Oh, okay." Dante stepped forward and placed his hands over hers on the gun for a moment. Meeting her eyes. "Safety's here. Leave it off now. Only use it if you absolutely have to. And if you do..." His jaw tightened. "Don't hesitate. They won't." Serena swallowed and nodded. She slid the pistol into the deep pocket of the coat Carmela had hurriedly given her, hoping she wouldn't need to draw it. Within minutes, they were back in the car, speeding toward the city. Dante drove this time, wanting control. Serena sat in the back with Nico. To better hide her presence, Dante insisted, in case Franco's lookout spotted the car early. 2 other vehicles with Dante's men followed at a discreet distance for backup. As they raced down the highway, Serena closed her eyes and sent every prayer she knew into the universe. Please let Danny be okay. She also made a silent vow. If her brother was harmed, nothing in heaven or hell would stop her from seeing Franco pay. They approached the restaurant just past noon. It was closed off with police tape from the prior night's investigation, the windows still bullet-pocked. Franco clearly didn't care about subtlety. Dante parked a block away, as instructed by the note. He turned off the engine. They sat for a second in taut silence. Dante took a breath and turned in his seat to face Serena. His eyes bore into hers with equal parts fear and determination. Gently, he reached out and cupped her cheek. "If anything goes wrong..." "No," Serena interrupted, placing her hand over his. "Don't you dare say goodbye." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "We'll get him out. But Franco, he might not honor his word. I need you to be prepared for anything." Serena nodded, though her heart was in her throat. "I am." He studied her for a beat, then unexpectedly leaned forward and pressed a quick, hard kiss to her forehead. "Stay behind me, and no matter what happens, keep yourself safe. Danny needs at least one of us." Before she could respond, he pulled away and exited the car. Serena steeled herself, fingers brushing the hidden gun in her pocket, and followed. The midday sun was blinding compared to the dark of earlier. The street was eerily quiet given the circumstances. Dante walked beside Serena, keeping her slightly behind his right shoulder. Nico trailed a few paces back, feigning distance, but she knew he was ready to jump in. The other backup teams remained out of sight for now. They reached the restaurant's front entrance. The door was ajar. Dante pushed it open, the bell tinkling oddly in the silence. Inside, Serena's heart clenched. The dining area was dim, and in disarray from the shootout. Overturned chairs, dried blood staining the floor in places, yellow evidence markers still scattered. It reeked of stale fear and cleaning bleach. And there, in the center of it all, was Franco Bianchi. He stood with a casual arrogance, flanked by 3 goons with guns pointed at the door. Franco wore a pale suit and an insufferably smug expression. A bandage wrapped his left forearm, courtesy of Dante's bullet, Serena realized grimly. Despite his injury, Franco looked triumphant. Serena's gaze immediately found Danny. Her little brother was being held by a hulking man to the side, a hand clamped over Danny's mouth, and a gun to his small head. He looked unharmed, but terrified, tears streaking his cheeks. Serena almost broke from cover right then, but Dante stepped forward, keeping himself slightly in front of her. "Franco," Dante greeted in a low, dangerous voice. "You wanted me. Here I am, let the boy go," Franco chuckled, stepping forward. Dante Moretti, always so heroic. "I'll admit, you had me worried last night, running off and all. But look, you came right to me gift-wrapped, and you even brought your pretty little waitress. How sweet." His eyes flicked to Serena, and she saw the malice in them. Rage flared inside her at his gaze, but Dante shifted subtly, blocking Franco's line of sight to her. "You have me. Let the boy go, as agreed." "Agreed?" Franco laughed, a cold, rasping sound. "I don't recall agreeing to anything yet. Here's my offer. You surrender, turn over control of your territories to me, and I might let the boy and the girl walk away unharmed. You, however," he smirked, "well, your reign ends today one way or another." Serena's hands curled into fists. She could feel the tension radiating from Dante. Even unarmed, that she could see, he exuded lethal intent. "Franco, you harm that child, and you'll wish the police got to you before I do," Dante growled. Franco rolled his eyes. "Spare me. This whole debacle is because you went soft for a piece of skirt. Did you think you could play house, Moretti? You? Look how easy it was for me to snatch the boy. What if I'd taken the girl instead, He flashed a predatory grin at Serena over Dante's shoulder. "Maybe I still will after I put you in the ground. A little trophy for my victory." Dante lunged half a step forward, fury contorting his face. "Touch her and I'll—" "Ah! Ah!" Franco sing-songed, raising a hand. His gunmen cocked their weapons in unison, aiming at Dante. The man restraining Danny pressed the pistol harder to the boy's temple, making Danny whimper. Dante froze, chest heaving with barely controlled wrath. Serena could feel her own nails biting her palms. She had to clench her jaw to keep from screaming at Franco. "That's better," Franco sneered. "Now toss any guns, nice and slow." Dante raised his hand slightly. From the corner of her eye, Serena saw him slide a small pistol from his waistband with 2 fingers and drop it to the floor. One thug strode forward to kick it away. "Good," Franco said. "Now here's how it's going to go. You, Dante, will walk out that back door with my associates into their van, and we'll take a little drive. Once I have you secure, I'll release the boy. Maybe even the waitress if I'm feeling generous. Though," he leered, "I might keep her around. She's got spirit." Serena trembled with hatred. She subtly shifted her position a half step to the side, trying to get a clear line of sight on the man holding Danny. Dante had told her to stay behind him, but her best shot, literally, at protecting them, might be coming from an unexpected angle. The goon with Danny was about 10 feet to their right, slightly behind the bar, with his attention mostly on Dante. One shot, Serena thought. If she could take that guy down, Dante could probably handle the rest in the confusion, but she had to time it perfectly. Dante's voice rang out, drawing Franco's focus fully back to him. "I'll go with you willingly if you let them go right now. That's the only way this ends without more blood." Franco sneered. "No bargaining, Moretti. You're in no position. First you get in the van, then I'll consider letting the brats go. Or maybe I'll leave them here with a phone to call 911 after we're gone. Either way, you'll be dead by tonight." Dante's eyes slid to Danny, then to Serena. She saw turmoil there. He was weighing Franco's words, trying to find any safe option for them. Finally, Dante slowly lowered himself to his knees, putting his hands behind his head. In a quiet, hoarse voice, he said, "Let the boy step away and I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt him." Serena's heart plummeted. Dante was surrendering. Franco's face lit up with victorious glee. One of the gunmen moved to yank Dante's arms and begin binding his wrists with a zip tie. Serena realized with dawning horror that if they tied Dante up and took him, Franco would never keep his promise. Danny would be collateral damage, and she'd likely end up silenced as well. No, this could not happen. Her mind flashed back to the pistol in her pocket, and to every crime drama and self-defense lesson she'd ever known. If there was ever a time for her to be brave, it was now. Hands trembling, she carefully slid the gun from her coat pocket, keeping it hidden behind her thigh. The safety was already off, as Dante had instructed. Her eyes met Dante's for a fraction of a second. He must have sensed something, because he gave a small shake of his head, almost imperceptible. He was telling her no. But Serena ignored it. She had to act. Drawing a steadying breath, she stepped forward, moving slightly to Dante's left, which gave her a clearer angle toward Danny's captor. The man noticed and barked, "Stay where you are, girl." Franco's attention snapped to Serena. The heroine emerges. "Feeling left out, dear?" Serena raised her hands as if in surrender, her right hand still gripping the gun hidden along her thigh. Her heart was in her throat. She had never shot anyone, never even truly imagined doing so. But for Danny and Dante, she would. She deliberately let a few tears spill, selling fear to distract them. "Please, let my brother go. He's just a kid," she pleaded, voice shaking. Franco smirked. "Oh, touching. Don't worry, sweetheart, you'll see him soon." Serena's blood boiled. She took one more step, now directly in front of Dante, who remained on his knees. Her movement placed her almost between Dante and Franco's men, partially blocking their immediate line of fire if she acted fast. She met Dante's eyes briefly. In them she saw fear, for her, not himself. And she saw something else, trust. He gave the slightest nod. "Now. Down!" Serena screamed, and in one motion she pulled the pistol up from behind her leg and fired at the thug holding Danny. The gun's bang was ear-splitting in the enclosed space. Her aim was a touch off. The bullet slammed into the man's shoulder, not his chest as intended, but it did the job. The thug yelled in pain, stumbling back and releasing Danny. The gun at Danny's head clattered away as the man reflexively clutched his shoulder. Chaos erupted. Dante lunged up from his knees, crashing into the gunman beside him before the man could react. Nico, who had crept right outside the entrance, burst in with his weapon drawn, firing at the third thug by Franco. That man went down with a cry, clutching his leg. Franco cursed and dove for cover behind an upturned table, drawing his own pistol in a flash. Danny, now free, scampered instinctively towards Serena. She rushed forward and pushed him behind a solid wooden pillar. "Stay down," she gasped, positioning herself between him and danger. Dante was wrestling with the thug he'd tackled, the two rolling behind a booth in a flurry of fists. A shot rang out. Serena's heart about stopped, but a second later Dante rose, having slammed the man's head into the floor, knocking him unconscious. The thug's stray shot had buried in the ceiling. Nico engaged with the goon Serena had winged, who despite his shoulder wound was scrambling for his dropped gun. 2 quick shots from Nico's pistol, and the man collapsed, incapacitated. Only Franco remained. He popped up from behind the table and fired wildly in Serena's direction. She ducked, covering Danny's smaller body with hers as wood splintered around them. Her heart hammered. In her peripheral vision, she saw Dante moving, circling to flank Franco from the side. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone, likely the backup teams outside or a bystander, had called the police. This needed to end now. Serena peeked around the pillar and saw Franco taking aim at Dante's approaching figure. Something fierce surged through her. She would not let this monster hurt Dante or Danny ever again. Steadying her shaking arm on the pillar for support, Serena took a deep breath, then stepped out just enough to get a clear shot. Franco's eyes shifted to her, surprise flickering. Perhaps he hadn't expected her to re-emerge with fire in her eyes. She didn't hesitate. Serena squeezed the trigger. Click. Jam. Her stomach dropped in horror. The pistol didn't fire. Either it was out of bullets or had jammed after the first shot. Franco's lips curled in a snarl, and he swung his gun toward her. Time seemed to slow. Serena felt a strange calm. She had to draw Franco's fire away from Danny and Dante, even if it meant getting hit. She locked eyes with Franco defiantly, bracing herself. But Dante was faster. In a single great bound, he crashed into Franco from the side just as the gun went off. The shot went wide, shattering a hanging lamp. Dante and Franco tumbled to the ground in a heap. Franco was eerily quick for a man of his age. He twisted, trying to bring his gun to bear. They grappled intensely, both grunting with effort. Dante's face was a mask of fury and determination. Serena frantically looked for something to help. Her gun was useless now. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Franco's revolver that had been knocked from his hand during the scuffle. It lay just a foot or two away from the two men, half under a chair. Nico was tending to the downed thugs, ensuring they were disarmed and unable to rejoin the fight. It was down to Dante and Franco, and Serena. She sprinted forward, adrenaline overriding fear. Just as Franco broke partially free and reached toward the fallen revolver, Serena kicked it with all her might, sending the weapon skittering across the floor, far out of reach. "You little—" Franco snarled, abandoning the gun and lunging at Serena in rage, his hands outstretched. Dante roared and grabbed Franco around the torso, hauling him back. Franco elbowed Dante in his wounded arm, making him falter with a groan. Serena reacted instantly. The wine bottle Dante had uncorked the night before still lay on the table nearby, miraculously unbroken. She snatched it up and, with a cry, smashed it against Franco's head as hard as she could. The bottle didn't break, but Franco's eyes went wide, a stunned oof escaping him. He crumpled to the floor in a daze. Dante stood over Franco's prone form, chest heaving. He looked at Serena, concern flooding his expression. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head quickly, adrenaline making her almost giddy. "No, I'm okay. Danny? Here." Danny emerged cautiously from behind the pillar and ran into Serena's arms. She hugged him fiercely, feeling his little heart hammering as wildly as hers. "It's okay, I've got you," she whispered, tears of relief finally spilling. A chorus of "Police! Drop your weapons!" rang out as half a dozen officers poured in through the front, guns drawn. In the distance, sirens blared. Nico, who had already disarmed himself, raised his hands high. Dante slowly raised his hands too, stepping away from Franco's groaning form. Serena did the same, one arm still protectively around Danny. The next minutes were a blur of shouted commands and confusion. The officers saw the unconscious or wounded kidnappers, saw Franco and Dante, known figures, and had to sort a very bizarre scene. Serena, still holding Danny close, immediately began explaining in a rush. "That man, Franco, he kidnapped my brother. We were rescuing him, he tried to kill us." She probably sounded hysterical, but she didn't care. The truth spilled out in a torrent. A detective she recognized, Detective Alvarez, who occasionally lectured at her law school, gently guided her and Danny aside to take their statement, away from the now handcuffed Franco and Dante. She was reluctant to be separated from Dante, but the last thing she saw was him giving her a small, reassuring nod as two officers patted him down. He didn't resist. By the time Serena finished giving her account, leaving out a few details like her having a gun, simply saying she distracted Franco, paramedics were treating the injured men. Franco, bleeding from the head and with a likely concussion, was taken into custody with a slew of charges waiting: kidnapping, attempted murder, and everything from the night before. Dante and his men were also taken in for questioning, though Detective Alvarez quietly told Serena that given the circumstances, it appeared they'd acted in defense of life. "You may have saved a lot of lives by stopping Bianchi," the detective admitted to Serena, shaking his head in amazement at her bravery. Serena simply asked which hospital the injured busboy from last night had been taken to, and hearing he was stable, she sighed in relief. Hours later, after statements were signed and Danny had been checked out by EMTs, thankfully unharmed, just frightened, Serena found herself standing on the police station steps with her brother by her side. They watched as Dante emerged from the precinct doors, Nico and a few of his loyal men right behind. Dante was free to go, for now. There would be legalities to sort out, but in this scenario, he was oddly on the right side of the law. He paused at the top of the steps, eyes scanning until they locked onto Serena and Danny waiting below. Serena's heart did a little flip. She hadn't realized just how desperately she'd needed to see him, unharmed and free, until that very moment. A broad smile broke over her face. Dante descended the steps quickly. Before he could say a word, Serena launched herself forward and threw her arms around his neck, hugging him tightly. Dante staggered back a half step in surprise, then wrapped her in an embrace just as fierce, burying his face against her hair. She felt him tremble slightly as he exhaled. Danny grinned and grabbed onto them as well, turning it into a tangle of hugs on the sidewalk. One of Dante's men let out a low whistle and a cheer, which Dante silenced with a half-hearted glare, but he was smiling too. Finally, Serena pulled back enough to look Dante in the eyes. Without hesitation, she reached up and pressed her lips to his in a soft, full kiss. Dante inhaled sharply, momentarily stunned, then cupped her face gently and returned the kiss with all the pent-up passion and relief in his heart. Serena heard someone, likely Nico, whoop in the background, but all she felt was Dante's warmth and the rightness of this moment. When they finally parted, both a little breathless, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "I thought I lost you," he whispered, voice raw. Serena shook her head, smiling through tears. "We made it. And I love you, Dante." The words spilled out, true and sure. His eyes widened slightly, then shone with joy. "Ti amo, Serena," he murmured. "I love you. I think I've loved you from the moment you looked me in the eye and dared to defy me." He gave a soft laugh, maybe even from when I first heard you speak and realized what a remarkable woman you are. Serena let out a happy sob, laughing as tears rolled down. Dante brushed them away with his thumbs tenderly. Danny cleared his throat with the dramatic disgust only a preteen could manage. "Ugh, are you guys gonna kiss again?" Serena and Dante both burst into laughter. Dante crouched to Danny's level. "Get used to it, kid," he said, putting an arm around Danny's shoulders and drawing Serena down with his other arm, so the three of them huddled close. "And Danny, I owe you an apology. You were in danger because of me." Danny shook his head. "Those bad guys were the ones who did it. You saved me. You saved us." Dante looked at Serena, who nodded in agreement. He swallowed hard, emotion thick in his voice. "I promise I will never let anything like that happen again. I'm done with that life. For good," Serena believed him. She saw it in his eyes, a resolution and peace that hadn't been there before. Franco's attack had been the final straw that set Dante free of the underworld's chains. She gently took Dante's hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "We're free now," she said softly. He squeezed her hand, a smile curving his lips. "Free to live our lives the way we choose, together." Serena leaned in and kissed him once more, a quick sweet peck that still made Danny gag theatrically. She and Dante laughed, pure happiness bubbling out. As they walked to Nico's car, which he had brought around to give them a ride home, Danny bounded ahead with an energy that only kids have after such an ordeal. He was excitedly chattering about how cool Serena was for hitting the kidnapper with a bottle, and how Dante's tackle was like Captain America or something. It warmed Serena's heart to see her brother already recovering, hero worship in his eyes for Dante. Dante listened amusedly, then swooped Danny up suddenly onto his shoulders as they walked, making the boy yelp in surprise, then laugh. Serena watched them, feeling tears prick again, this time out of sheer gratitude. They had gained something precious through all this, a family. In the weeks that followed, Dante made good on his word. He cooperated with authorities to quietly dismantle parts of his crime operations and distance himself from others. With Franco Bianchi and key associates behind bars due to overwhelming evidence of multiple felonies, a major threat was removed. Dante's own legal slate was surprisingly clean, given that most witnesses painted him as a victim or hero in the recent incidents. Any lingering investigations into his past gradually fizzled, either for lack of evidence, or perhaps a few strings pulled behind the scenes. With his wealth mostly intact and blood off his hands, at least from these events, Dante began investing in legitimate enterprises. One of those was the very restaurant where he and Serena met. It needed new owners after the scandal, and Dante anonymously funded its rebuilding, stipulating that all employees' jobs, including Mira's and the manager's, were secure. Serena had smiled when she heard, "Trust Dante to take care of everyone quietly." As for Serena, she chose not to return to waitressing, with Dante's enthusiastic support. Instead, she picked up her law studies again part-time and devoted herself to a new project, an outreach program for at-risk youth in the city to steer them away from crime and violence. Dante volunteered anonymously as a donor and even a mentor in disguise. The kids just thought he was a successful businessman with cool stories. Watching him guide teens on the right path, using his experiences to help rather than harm, made Serena fall even deeper in love. Danny healed too, with therapy and the unwavering love of his sister and Dante, who became an older brother figure that Danny idolized. His nightmares from the kidnapping faded. Soon he was back to being a happy, sarcastic middle schooler, albeit one who boasted to a few close friends that a real-life ex-mob boss was teaching him how to play chess and self-defense. One golden evening about a year later, Serena found herself strolling along a quiet Italian seaside village's cobbled street, hand in hand with Dante while Danny skipped stones in the surf ahead with their dog. The villa they rented for the summer overlooked a peaceful harbor, far removed from the bustle of the city. Dante had indeed walked away from the violent world, and Serena had gladly walked with him. They still spent time in the city for her work and Danny's school, but more and more, they carved out spaces that were just their own, untouched by the past. As the setting sun painted the sky in pinks and oranges, Serena leaned her head on Dante's shoulder. "Have you ever been this happy?" she asked softly. Dante looked down at her, his eyes warm and content. "Never. Not until you." He paused, then in a playful whisper added, "Technically, this all started because you ignored me, you know." Serena laughed, swatting his arm lightly. "Best bad service of your life, He chuckled and pressed a kiss to her hair. It definitely earned the biggest tip. "My heart." Serena groaned at the cheesy line, but secretly she loved it. She turned and rose up to kiss him lovingly, the salty breeze tossing her hair around them. Dante kissed her back, slow and sweet, still as captivated by her as that first night. You two are hopeless," Danny's voice called from down the beach, though he was grinning. "Come on, I found a cool crab." Serena and Dante broke apart, laughing. Hand in hand, they walked toward Danny, ready to admire his discovery and share in his youthful excitement. They had come such a long way from that fateful night in the restaurant. Through danger and fear, through brave defiance and bold sacrifices, they had forged an unbreakable bond. Serena had helped Dante find the man he could be outside of crime, and Dante had shown Serena depths of love and protection she never knew. No, their life wasn't what either expected, it was better. It was real and honest in theirs. As Serena slipped her arm around Dante's waist and watched Danny proudly pointing out a tiny crab scuttling by the shore, she realized she wouldn't trade a second of the journey that led them here. The waitress and the Mafia boss, an unlikely pair who found love in the most unlikely way, had overcome every demon and danger. Now, under the golden sky of a peaceful new world, they were simply a family, and together, they walked forward into a bright future, far beyond the shadows of the past, where love and hope would forever guide them home.